Welcome back. And I would love to introduce Peter Hoppenfeld, a strategist, advisor, and attorney at law. But don't let that fool you. He's a marketer at heart, and he's a marketer who just happens to be an attorney. Peter is a highly effective strategist, a senior advisor, and counsel to successful entrepreneurs who need proactive guidance and assistance in implementing growth strategies. He really likes to put your house in order, is what he says. And he does that by creating structures and processes to help you expand and thrive. His firm represents the best and brightest trainers throughout the world, thought leaders, authors, marketers. They provide insightful advice on cutting-edge growth strategies. They like to participate in the implementation of new paradigms in marketing, in social networking, publishing, and the sale of information products. One of their traits is that they provide honest, forthright advice and service bases upon decades of real-world experience to entrepreneurs who often have never put their house in order. So they bring that real guidance to the creative types and would like to create marriages and alliances of like-minded businesses for the greater good, both socially and economically. Their current client base includes a growing number of motivational speakers, trainers involved in personal development, information marketers, as well as online content providers and lead generators. So if that's you, you definitely want to pay attention to this interview. And without further ado, Peter, welcome and thank you for giving us our time live from your apartment in New York.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope I can live up to the introduction. Thanks so much. Nice to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you, especially as somebody who is a speaker who has thought properties, intellectual properties out there. Tell us a little bit about who you work with and what got you started.
So, I tend to follow that old expression or that old saying, when you see a fork in the road, take it, which thanks to the late, great Yogi Berra has become part of the nomenclature, but it's actually kind of true for me. I've had circumstances where there were opportunities in front of me and I took a chance and I took the fork in the road. And my practice and my experience through the last 35 plus years in direct response and direct marketing really is a result of serendipity, meeting people and seeing opportunity. So back in the day, prior to pre-internet, is amazing. There were sales that were made pre-internet. I was involved in distribution work, franchise programs, with personal development and thought leaders involved in real estate and in finance. Back in the day, my first direct response client was a guy named Charles Givens, who at the time in the late 80s had the top personal finance program in the world. Pre-internet, he had infomercials, live seminars, direct response marketing, his own MLM, you name it. And I was thrown into this mix and quickly absorbed the fact that I needed to understand the strategy behind sales in order to be a valuable advisor. Because if all I was doing was saying no, they didn't need me to say no, they needed me to find solutions. So I realized that I needed to understand what was the dynamics of the sale process, what enabled them to both get leads and close them. What was a sales funnel all about? And I learned those tools hands-on 35 years ago. And as the technology and the methodology of sales and marketing and direct response has changed, I just added tools to my tool belt. So we evolved through, the fax machine, and we evolved into the digital world and email and then social media. My first job out of law school, we used a memory typewriter with carbon paper. Most of my clients don't even know that there was a typewriter or what carbon paper is. But the lessons learned in strategy back then apply very much to direct response and direct digital marketing today. And I use that every day as I represent, people in the world, in the direct marketing world.
And so that brings me to, I guess, what makes you unique. As you pointed out, and we pointed out, you are a marketer who just happens to be a lawyer. So what is the strength? Where does that legal expertise help you in helping your clients do better?
So I always say strategy first, lawyering second. So my approach is to understand the dynamic of the client, what what product they're selling, what their end game is, what their risk tolerances are, how they are positioning their product or service in the marketplace, what their key channel is, what they're most comfortable doing both online and live, and what kind of staffing they have, and what their real end game is. What is it they're trying to accomplish? Is it a bigger good? Is it a big company to be sold? Are they happy with where they're at? What are their brand extensions? And once I understand that, we deal with the strategy of go to market or fix their market presence, position them for growth. And the lawyering I've been doing for 38 years. The lawyering's easy. It's the strategy that's hard. So once I understand what the client wants to accomplish, what they're comfortable in doing, where they are on a scale of 1 to 10 in risk reward, then we lawyer. Then the rules are things, and the best practices are things that I'm dealing with every day, reviewing copy, contracting, foundational elements, disclaimers, and those kind of things, client relations, customer service, HR issues, intellectual property issues. They all fit within the global view of strategy. So a client who is a real risk taker will have a different strategy in my mind from a client who's more risk averse. Or a client in health, wellness, and fitness, which is a large part of my practice, has different issues than my personal development clients, or my financial oriented clients, or my how to market clients. Because many of my clients have been successful marketers and now are teaching others. They become the thought leader for marketing strategy, and I work with them, and where they now become the teacher. So it runs the gamut. And then we have the book deals and the TV deals that follow from both celebrity and from know-how.
Right. And so making sure that we're structuring a strategy up front that is protecting both parties involved from a legal standpoint.
Well, it's talking about longevity, market presence. Are they in to build a company to sell it? Are they in to build a company to keep it? Are they looking to collaborate with others? Are they, have they done their homework to make sure they own their names, their content, their images, their music, you name it? How are they going to collaborate with others? Remember this, as this phase of digital marketing has evolved, and I pinpoint a threshold moment the last time we had a financial crisis, because obviously we're in one right now. In 2008, when the old paradigm of doing business ended because there was no credit. You couldn't have, the old days, you'd go to a live event and the platform speaker would be selling you content, and they would tell you to go increase your credit line to buy this course because they were selling in a sales funnel with very high ticket items. Well, in 2008, when the market crashed, everything flipped. What emerged from that was the sale of content as a digital marketer. Many of my clients were there at the beginning, and their approach, which was sacrilegious at the time, was, hey, nobody bought content to that point, and they were saying, you know what? Listen to what I have to say. Let me build some community. If people like what they're hearing for free, well, maybe they'll pay me $19.95 for an ebook. Maybe they'll do a continuity training for $20 a month. Whereas 6 months before, the opening ticket item in a funnel was $5,000 and $10,000. They were building community, building trust, and they were starting to sell content. Before that time, content was free. The internet was free. Okay, so content membership programs start to happen and ebooks start to happen. And guess what? Whereas 6 months and a year earlier, you would never collaborate with a competitor, affiliate marketing evolves, where a marketer is now going to share a list, which was unheard of. They're going to let you be exposed to your customers. Well, guess what? Affiliate marketing is what jump-started the digital economy, really. It wasn't e-com. It was this kind of interactive relationship. It created the ClickBanks. It created all that collaborative work. It brought the mastermind model back, which had been laid fallow for years, where now content and experience was something people would pay for. And it built. Now, things have evolved and changed over the years because those leaders who did that are now 3 generations back behind the new marketers who don't necessarily understand the best practices and the common courtesies that enable digital and internet marketing to evolve. That's a
So,
story for another day. But the
yeah,
point of the matter is everything evolved for a reason, and that's where we are now with all these different structures, which allows people to aggressively and quickly get their content, their name, and their brand out to market.
and Peter, so we had a shift, as you had pointed out in 2008. There was an economic crash, and there was a shift in thinking. And as you had pointed out, those early pioneers are now 3 generations back of what we are at now.
Right.
Would you say that there will be, in your opinion, a pivot back to old practices, or do you foresee any new practices that are evolving?
Yeah. So what's actually very interesting right now, and just if anybody's watching this not live and picking this up some later date, we're in the middle of the COVID crisis right now. It's May of 2020. And what I've seen from my client base in the last 90 days of lockdown is most of my clients in health, wellness, and fitness are doing very, very well, especially those that didn't mess with their formula. Okay. They didn't go overboard to say, yeah, I've got to sell immune busters, which has gotten a lot of people in a lot of trouble. And they stayed the course, and they viewed this as a blip, and they stayed loyal to their communities. What has also happened is because people have more time, they are devouring content in a much different way. Their attention spans are much longer. They're staying and visiting sites for a longer basis. They are digesting podcasts and books in ways that didn't happen 120 days ago because they have more time and they're willing to focus on it. So I think rather than going back in time to a purer time in 2008, I think we're seeing an evolution of new paradigms and a new normal. I like to say, people come to me, they'll see me speak at an event, digital or live, or they'll have gone to multiple events, and they'll come to me and they say, you know what, so-and-so's, Tyler says I should do A, B, C, and D. And Gail says I should do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so-and-so says I have to do it in this order and do it this way. And we understand the thought leaders have their methods, okay? And I say to those people, those clients, listen, the leaders at any given time in sales and marketing particularly are the ones who had synthesized for themselves the things that were most real and genuine to them. Mm-hmm. So find the things that work for you, do your homework, and take a little bit from here and a little bit from there and make it your own. And if you make it your own, you will be the thought leader other people follow if you're successful. And what makes those kind of evolutions or synthesis of different thoughts effective? Mostly it's the person who puts it in a way together in a way that makes it genuine to them. Okay? If it's genuine and comfortable for them, you're less likely to lie. You're less likely to cheat. You're less likely to misrepresent. You're more likely to be believable. Okay? The audience is watching you. It's not just what you say, it's what they hear, right? And if they see you as being real and being genuine in every step of your marketing funnel, it's more likely to be relevant to them, and they're more likely to convert. What's a conversion? A click, a purchase, an action, an interaction, right? If they like you and you are real, that's 90% of the battle, okay? So the challenge is synthesizing it in a way that's relevant for the time and creating the new method. We've gone through, like Ryan Levesque's a client, he had the ask method. I have other clients, Pedro Adao is doing challenges. There are people who step up who have synthesized approaches for lead generation and conversion that are hot at any given moment. John Walker's, product sales formula, Brendan Burchard's stuff is evolutionary. It's derivative. Now, I don't recommend people steal stuff, certainly, but synthesizing to create the next paradigm that's relevant for a time is how we got here in the first place.
And one of the questions that I had for you, because you've said a couple of things, and each time you've said it, it's popped into my head. Swipe files. when we're talking intellectual property, we've got a whole bunch of people out there who are synthesizing information, putting them together and say, look, we've got this marketing package for you. If you want to do it, simple, 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 use this swipe file. What's your thought on that? And how do you protect it? How do you use them properly?
So look, swipe files are really intended to be guides for theory, for sales theory. This is the structure of a pitch, of an offer, okay? And these are the elements, and look what the masters have done in the past. They are not intended to be steal from me, copy it. That's not what they're intended for. Now, it goes back to what we were talking about, the common courtesies of 2008. Now we're 4 generations later in 2020, and people don't remember what common courtesy was, and it's the Wild West. That happens all the time. But the point is, there are basic flows to a sales letter. There's basic setups to make a sale. A client and friend of mine, Kevin Rogers, who runs Copy Chief, who's one of the top direct response copywriters in the world, but he also used to be a stand-up comedian. And he did a presentation once where he showed how similar the setup of a good stand-up joke is to a sales letter, because there's a stage along what you move the reader or the listener along a path to get to the punchline, or you move them on a path to get to buy now. Okay? So swipe file should be educational. Look how the masters did this. But not like give them Shakespeare, but not to copy Shakespeare, but to be educated to understand dynamic.
And at what point, I'm curious now, because I see these put out all the time and then people grab and swipe them. Is there any copyright issue with that? Or if you're putting it out for public domain, is it public domain?
Well, the challenge is, did you put it out for public domain? And then it's a subjective standard, like, is it black or is it white? Did you really copy it, or did you just copy part of it? How much of it did you copy? It's the most distasteful part of my practice. We're constantly dealing with, people stealing copy, stealing images, stealing ideas. It's horrendous. It's really a shame. Can you protect your copy? Of course you can. Can you really police it? Hard to say. Hard to say. But let's also be real. Just lessons learned to the audience. Images aren't free. Music isn't free. Okay? Do trademark searches. There's a lot of IP experts as part of this event. Make sure you have the rights to use a name before you use it. Take that extra step to do trademark searches to see what's out there. The worst thing you can do is have to change the name of your business or your offer. And don't be shocked when you grab an image off the internet. It's not free. They are not shaking you down, just to bust your chops. I've had clients who had claims made over a piece of cauliflower for $10,000. Well, you know what? Some photographer took that picture of the cauliflower. You need to get the right license to use in your marketing. Free licenses almost across the board will get you in trouble. These are not hobbies that you're running, they're businesses.
And I think that's probably the best advice. You get what you pay for. I know I've run into those issues.
I just lost your volume for a second. Now you're good.
Okay, good. So I was saying, I think the old adage that you get what you pay for is
absolutely true.
Probably the one to follow.
Absolutely true. So, you want we talked about strong foundation. I'm a stickler in paper trailing relationships. I'm a stickler in having the right disclaimers on your websites, terms of service, dealing with privacy issues, privacy policies. I also, I'll take credit for it. I've created what I used to call terms of participation or enrollment agreements for training programs and membership programs to be very clear about what people are buying. It's remarkable to me, when you go and buy or lease a car, you get a bill of sale that sets forth the features that are in that car, right? The options that you're getting. It's remarkable. People are selling training programs, digital content. You go through a whole video sales letter into a email conversion to a phone call to a webinar, you name it, and they send you to the landing page, buy now. And there's no detail. So I'm a strong believer, and I'm a proponent that people are very clear about what people are buying, what the deliverables are, what the obligations are, that you can't just buy my stuff and copy it and sell it, that you need to behave like an adult, and if you are disruptive in a group, for example, that we can kick you out, that we have a right to monitor group interaction on a Facebook group, for example. Facebook groups are wonderful when things are great, and they're horrible when things aren't. So I want to set the rules of behavior and engagement when people are buying these kind of and selling courses and training programs. So, foundationally, you want those in place. You want to make sure you have own your name, that you have your staff under contract. When people are creating things for you, that you own the stuff they create. Again, worst thing that can happen is you build this great program, Tyler, okay, and you hire that videographer, all right, on a wink and a nod, and 2 years later, when you have $1 million course, they come knocking at the door and they say, "Pay me or take it down." Avoidable. It should be paper trail at the beginning. So.
And I think that's a really good point, especially as someone myself who has created digital courses before and currently in the process of creating one specifically for another company who has asked to license my intellectual property. I've seen that. I had my original book cover actually taken away from me from what you were talking about with the trademark,
right.
Where we used a stock image, paid for the stock image, but didn't check the right option for the
Correct.
payment of the stock image.
Right.
So as we're moving towards a more digital era, and I think the COVID pandemic really put a microscope and an emphasis on digital content delivery because it was the way people were forced to consume. Do you see any new changes legally that on the horizon that maybe we need to be aware of, or that you would like to see created even?
Well, look, we're at the beginnings of the implementation of comprehensive privacy laws, which I think are needed. The EU implemented GDPR 2 years ago. Is it what it totally needs to be? Probably not. California's CCPA was enacted and became in effect in January, which my clients are working on complying with. I think the purpose of those laws are important and are good. People should know. Americans are way behind the consciousness of the rest of the world when it comes to digital privacy. People should be in more control and have more interest in what their personal data, how it's being used. So there's certainly going to be big changes in privacy laws across the country, California being the first. I think that, I don't know how this will come to play, but I think codes of conduct and best practices in terms of the interaction between digital marketers needs to, be at the forefront. People are misbehaving badly. I think that kind of flushes out because the regulators get involved, which is the last thing you want to happen, really. Mm-hmm. And with a broad brush, we'll deal with the situation, but some innocent bystanders will also get swept with the same task force. I like to kind of view each day as my digital clients come across my screen as a new day, and wait for the innovators to step up and say, we've got a better mousetrap, so to speak. So my eyes are wide open to what the new normal now looks like. We've seen that working remote, although it's been certainly fairly commonplace, but now has become 100% in the service or businesses acceptable, both strategically and socially. That I'm curious to see how my creative clients add to that equation by creating products and services that help support that. There's going to be interesting changes in brick and mortar businesses over the next couple of years. I think Main Street in small town America is going to change, and it might be a collaboration with big business in small towns, because we've seen in the last 90 days you can actually work without being in a skyscraper, but you probably could use a local resource center. Mm-hmm. Just saying.
And you brought up a good point that business is changing. What do you think what's the biggest lesson that a brick and mortar store, particularly a small business, a mom and pop shop, can learn and adapt from some of these digital platforms and the method of delivery?
I think there's always been this black and white, yes and no kind of dichotomy between Main Street retail and digital e-commerce businesses. And I think the smaller businesses have been forced, kicking and screaming, to give up the kicking and screaming and to have digital portals in order to support sales while their storefronts were closed, and now in transition while they're having, street side pickup, and they're finding that remarkably they could do it cost effectively, that their customers are accepting more digital options than they did in the past. The demographics of digital use has exploded in terms of older consumers. So, I have clients who are in the financial education business, for example, and they have, direct mail lists. Yes, direct mail. They just use stamps because the demographic of their audience is older, skews older, and mail is what they're used to. And they still send DVDs out because that their clientele wants them. But that clientele is now becoming more savvy digitally.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the audience is saying, "What, are you kidding? What do you mean? They don't understand?" No, they don't. There's a good portion of the consuming public that has never been comfortable with streaming. Okay, well, now they are. They've never been comfortable with e-commerce. Well, now they are. So that's going to have long-lasting effect on both marketing and retail. Just saying.
And when you're looking at that bell curve of implementation, we are on the back side of that. So there is the majority of people that, even if they were reluctant to embrace technology previously, given the last 3 to 4 months, have kind of been forced into that learning curve. Do you foresee then a pretty good upside as far as opportunities go to maybe get some of that hidden market?
Well, all I can go as a barometer is my practice. I've been busier in the last 90 days than I was the 90 days before that. Businesses are pivoting. Businesses that might have been sitting on opportunity viewed this COVID crisis as a jumpstart to get off the fence and take steps.
What's the best pivot you've seen so far?
That's a good question. My health and wellness and fitness practice, I represent a lot of functional medicine practitioners who are trying to abandon their standard primary care roles and really jump on a telemedicine model.
Mm-hmm.
My financial education clients are dealing with the age gap we were just talking about,
mm-hmm.
With a client base that wants information and realize that they need to consume it digitally. Bunch of e-commerce clients who are just, they were kind of, their toes were in the water, but they weren't fully committed, or making a full commitment, and they're rebranding and they're working on alliances, they're expanding their product base.
And you had said something in it, it kind of sparked a thought for me as well. I know my chiropractor, along with every other chiropractor where I live, couldn't practice for 2 months and are just starting to be able to open up their practices now. And it's under some very, very, very strict guidelines, fairly inhibitive. But I know mine in particular really did embrace that whole health model. And during the lockdown was putting out bulletins on stretches that they could do, ways to eat nutritiously, ways to move even within the house.
Right.
Now, combine that with your knowledge, what could he have done better to maybe protect that intellectual property, or maybe even monetize it a little bit more successfully, other than just broadcasting it out to his current mailing list?
See, that's an interesting question. There's several things that one has to address, and it's going to seem pedantic, but the way doctors are regulated in the United States is state by state, licensing board by licensing board. And unfortunately, and I work with a lot of health and wellness practitioners, chiropractors and other disciplines are constrained by their licenses in terms of what other ancillary services and products they can sell. So my general advice is make sure you're clear about what you can and can't do in your scope. That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, doctors and medical practitioners sometimes have grandiose ideas of being able to expand exponentially by having a digital presence. Short of having a unique, world-renowned reputation for a particular situation, disease, or care structure, most medical professionals will build their business, even online, in their hometown. Okay? It's just the nature of the beast.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the digital marketing teachers overstate the ability of somebody to hang a digital shingle, and people expect they're going to come from around the world. They're not. So you're going to build it the old-fashioned way and have a local calling. And that means your content should be local, and your content should be personal, and your content should be genuine, which is what I talked about a half hour ago. And that's the way you build. A lot of what my clients, for example, in the functional medicine world are teaching is lifestyle. And that lifestyle stuff isn't necessarily protectable, nor does it need to be, because it's your calling card, it's your opinion, it's your ability to show your audience who you are, what you're interested in, how that interest could help them, and how they could be healthier. Okay? Where you have issues that you want to protect is when you create the 9-step model to whatever that you want to be worrying about it, or some methodology that you want to be sharing, or some exercise program that you want to be selling. That's where you have more IP concerns than in general editorial.
And just one more question for you. I know it's your mission and the mission of your practice to provide honest and forthright advice to those service-based companies. What is the one gem, the one thing you wish every client knew before they got to you?
I wish there are 2 or 3 things that I hope that entrepreneurs do. They read. Okay? Read. Mm-hmm. And they continue to read. It's not something you should be totally delegating. You need to read. Number 1. Number 2, I like to say you can't manage your business from a luxury box. So I have a lot of clients who started, working from their den, from their bedroom, to build a business. They were going to build the lifestyle, right? And then the business takes off, and it evolves and it grows, and they've been hands-on, and then they add staff and they add resource, and they become less hands-on. And some of them, like I say, manage from the luxury box, and they lose touch with what made their business great. Okay? I understand you can't micromanage everything, but you need to keep your finger on the pulse of your business. And you can't grow in a way that takes you away from knowing what your customers are saying about your business, how they're interacting with you, whether there's a problem, whether you've lost sight, where you're off the ball, so to speak, with what resonates to your audience. Things change. Your business changes. Your role changes. And as a leader, you need to keep your finger on the pulse of what makes it happen. And when you grow and take brick and mortar management theories and apply it to your digital business, it could ruin it just by virtue of you becoming unaware of what's going on the street. So the magic you created in your den, you have to maintain that magic as your business grows.
I think that's fantastic advice, Peter. And thank you for taking the time to
Sure, absolutely.
really share with us, because I know you've got a busy practice. You've got a lot of really high-profile clients. So just having this opportunity to have this conversation has been wonderful, and I'm sure our audience took a lot away from it, because I know I definitely did.
Awesome. Thank you.
If anybody who's watching wants to reach out to you and get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
Email is fine, phoppenfeld@gmail.com, PHOPPENFELD@gmail.com. Website's peterhoppenfeld.com. Come take a look. I am glad to share, to talk. Just reach out.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Peter Hoppenfeld, and thank you so much again. We really appreciated the time.
Appreciate you. Thanks, Tyler.